Natural curiosity and a taste for good mystery have motivated people for centuries to explore all corners of our planet. We learned a great deal from the experiences we had, driven by such exploration. On the other hand, there are those elements that we can't seem to wrap our heads around, and even scientists are having a hard time understanding them. Today, we bring you a list of 20 mysteries that even scientists can't explain. Number 1. The overturned bridge, dog suicide spot. Bridges are usually a popular tourist attraction in any place. The one that we will tell you about today has a very different appeal and a story to it. This one is located in Scotland, and it was made in the 19th century. No matter how you look at it, besides being impressively old and pretty, there is nothing weird one can find about it. However, it holds a great mystery. Namely, this bridge has been connected with numerous unexplained dog deaths. Between the 1940s and 1950s, people started reporting that dogs had gone missing around this area, but that's not even the worst of it. Instead, there is one specific spot on this bridge from which many dogs have leaped to their death. In all of these cases where a dog has jumped from the bridge, no clear reasoning behind it was found, creating even a greater mystery about the overturned bridge, which has earned itself the name of a dog suicide bridge. People have definitely tried to figure out what the reason could be. Some theories include the idea of specific smells that make the dogs go nuts and jump, and others think it could be some sort of illusion that literally confuses the dogs into such behavior. Number 2. The Hexam Heads. While we can't claim that the previously shown bridge may be a cursed place, the following items that we examine may very well be, considering all the eerie stories that surround them. The story of the Hexam Heads begins in 1971 with 2 boys walking around their garden and finding the scary-shaped head figures. These 2 stones were not much larger than a tennis ball, and since this occurred in Hexham, England, they were quickly named the Hexam Heads. They soon became the center of attention and the inspiration for countless theories about unexplained events that followed. We believe that even one look at these faces can show us why people find them to be creepy. Indeed, they proved to be, since the family that unearthed them soon experienced frightening and unexplainable things, such as objects moving on their own and noises that had no place in an empty house. What's worse, the horrors seem to have spread beyond the house, and creatures such as werewolves appeared on the grounds. Since this has drawn the public's attention even more, a scientist decided to look into it. After taking the object off of the family's hands, she too experienced similar disturbing events. Number 3. The Dighton Rock. The mysterious bridge from the first example is certainly old, but not as old as the next item that baffled the scientists. While you may wonder what could be interesting about a 40-ton heavy boulder, we take you to the last ice age. Apparently it was then that this rock was moved by natural forces and ended up in Massachusetts, USA. That kind of solves the mystery of how the rock got there. But the question that still remains is who wrote the symbols on it. Now you should remember that we have managed to recreate most of the history that we know today by relying on finding similar relics. The issue with this one is that it tells us a different story. It apparently points out that there could have been an ancient civilization that isn't accounted for by our history. This is why there are over 30 theories regarding the rock's origin, and we still haven't found one that scientific authorities can agree with. Number 4. The Piri Reis Map. To understand what's weird and unexplainable about the following item we bring you, we should start by turning our attention toward how maps were made throughout history. Since we couldn't rely on GPS or any similar means to understand the terrain surrounding us, and we didn't even have a way to travel these great distances, we had to rely on human senses to record it. Simply put, people had to walk around and make drawings of the surrounding terrain before they could be put together on a map. Now, if we didn't have all of these things that we just mentioned, then we would have no idea how a map created in 1513 by an Ottoman general had so many details so precisely marked down. The map was drawn on gazelle's skin, and it has very precise details about what Africa and even Antarctica looked like. If that doesn't sound weird to you, let's mention that it took us a few centuries after the map was made before we officially discovered Antarctica. What further adds to the mystery is that it is possible that the creator knew something that could be described as modern science and logic of how maps are created. Although there have been many ideas, including the existence of ancient civilizations whose knowledge and advancement surpass even nowadays, we're still left with the question of how this map came to be. Number 5. Oumuamua. Since we have, in the previous example, focused on the geography of Earth, let's now look upwards towards the sky and the unknown universe. The discovery that we will tell you about was made in 2017 by a telescope, and it gained the name Oumuamua, meaning messenger or scout in the Hawaiian language. If you haven't already caught on to the scary idea that lies behind this name, the behavior of this astral body was so strange that people thought it could be the beginning of the invasion. We would expect this object to be an asteroid. However, it has a shape that is very strange and unexpected for an asteroid. It is about half a mile or 800 meters long and has a width of roughly 260 feet or 80 meters. The object is not just oddly shaped, but its movements are very quick, and it is constantly rotating at this high speed. This type of movement we have never seen before, and considering how weird it was to find it, we aren't surprised that it was named an alien scout. Number 6. The Klerksdorp spheres. The previous story was about potential aliens coming to us, but the next one will showcase an artifact that some believe to be proof that alien life was already present on our planet at some point. Whenever perfect shapes are found in nature, even though they could be the result of natural processes, our minds usually go to the idea that human hands have something to do with them. Considering this, it's unsurprising that these perfect spheres, suspected to be 3 billion years old, caused quite an intrigue. They were found in South Africa and usually aren't much larger than a marble. But it isn't just their shape, size, and age that creeped the scientists out. They were also found in huge boulders, and their concrete place was marked with multiple circular drawings. Again, we mentioned that when something has such a perfect shape and intriguing placement, it causes a lot of intrigue, which is why some trust it could be either evidence of advanced historical civilizations we are unaware of, or even alien life. Number 7. The Red Rain of Kerala. The Klerksdorp spheres are indeed very mysterious artifacts that we have stumbled across. The next event we bring you has more to do with recent occurrences that scientists can't really explain. It happened in 2001 in India, and it caused a lot of worry among the local population. Indeed, rain can sometimes be tiresome and affect our mood, especially when it happens continuously for multiple days. Now, let's add a twist to that. Imagine that the color of the rain is blood red, and everything that you see has turned into Resident Evil-like scenery. Anything that this color fell on immediately became stained, including skin, textures, clothes, and streets. Even though scientists have tried to understand what caused this weird event, they couldn't find a clear explanation. Some of the guesses included that a desert storm had mixed sand with the water in the clouds. Others believed it could be the residue of industrial factories that created this mystery. After we had a chance to analyze what was found within these raindrops, we discovered it was a form of algae that was causing the blood-like color. These raindrops seemed to have been carried by wind from all around the world, and after getting accumulated, they started pouring over India. Luckily, this isn't harmful to humans. Number 8. The Devil's Kettle, a bottomless hole. We must have heard the words "a bottomless hole" used a lot in conversations. Sometimes it's what we rely on to describe humans or various forms of resources. But the story that we bring you is potentially about an actual bottomless hole, or at least scientists still haven't successfully found a way to prove that a bottom exists. We bring you the Devil's Kettle in Minnesota. The river flow at one point reaches a rock formation that seemingly steals half of the water and sends it on an unknown path. Scientists have tried to understand where this vast amount of water could go. They have tried techniques such as putting dye or floating objects in the Devil's Kettle and observing where these would show up. We still haven't been able to locate them after. That is why we are left to wonder what mysterious future has befallen the things that we have sent down this bottomless hole. Number 9. The Dancing Plague of 1518. Some of the examples that we bring you today will show a lot of mysteries unexplainable by science that come from actual humans. This is the case with what became known as the Dancing Plague of 1518. What happened back then in Strasbourg was a weird event. What appears to have happened is that a woman whose name is Frau Trophea began one of the deadliest and most mysterious dancing revolutions ever. She began having a grand time frivolously dancing around for a whole week. This then spread to other people who witnessed the event, and what's worse isn't that they were dancing and enjoying themselves, but that they apparently weren't able to stop. Some assess that over 400 people took part in this endless dance-off, which lasted for so long that some of them even collapsed from all the physical activity and strain on their bodies. We still can't seem to agree on what could have caused such an unbelievable plague. The best guess that we have is that it came from mass hysteria, a very rare and unique psychological phenomenon. Number 10. The Sailing Stones of Racetrack Playa, Death Valley National Park. The next case we bring you takes us to a canyon with quite a menacing name. It is Death Valley National Park, located in California. It is the place where one of the weirdest natural occurrences appears, namely, rocks are seemingly moving on their own, and we can easily see how this can cause a lot of guessing. As if to trigger our imagination further, these rocks even leave trails behind. But then again, no one appears to have seen them actually move. Still, considering that the ground in this territory is so dry, any movement is clearly noticeable right in the sand. So there's no question about whether these stones are actually moving, but we're still not sure how. Some of the guesses that we had through time included magnetic or ground-shaking based movements, but none of them are still proven. Number 11, the Green Children of Woolpit. If you're a fan of Marvel's Hulk, you may be interested in hearing what we have to say about the following case. This mystery takes us back to medieval England, where many wicked theories have been cited throughout time. Considering that a lot of stories, legends, and folklore are wound into the story of the Green Children of Woolpit, it seems that the rift between reality and fantasy could have collapsed in this case. What seems to have occurred is that back in the 20th century, people found two children whose color was entirely green, and they spoke in a language that no one understood. They were captured by one of the wolf traps and taken to the landlord. Since they appeared to be okay, unharmed and healthy, they were a big surprise for everyone, especially since they had first refused any food other than raw beans. Could it be that this specific eating habit is what caused the green color of their skin? We may never know. Number 12. The Black Knight Satellite, UFO enthusiasts' best theory. If you ain't one of the people who have an interest in UFOs, you still may want to hear about the Black Knight Satellite. Some believe this is the most convincing evidence we have ever found of there being an alien species that, at some point, may try to reach out to Earth. Some of these satellites' first sightings happened in the 1950s, when radio signals were received from somewhere close to the Earth, but we couldn't identify where they were coming from. About 10 years later, we caught a glimpse of an object that appeared to be flying around the Earth and flying in such a manner that our known technology couldn't achieve. This is why some believe it must have come from another planet or another culture, with more advanced technology than ours. A theory that later became a book says that this object and the signals that we received could be messages, and that the Black Knight satellite could have been around for more time than we were able to record these signals. Number 13, the Moeraki boulders. Through some of the previous examples, we have realized that whenever the shape of the object seems too perfect, it usually grabs the scientist's attention. This is also the case with the Moeraki boulders. Compared to the previously explored spherical, mysterious shapes, these aren't marble-sized, but can be up to nearly 10 feet or 3 meters large. People tried to unravel the mystery of these perfectly shaped rocks, and even though these efforts were put forward, we still have things to discover about them. On the other hand, this has indeed become quite a well-known tourist attraction. The working theory that we currently have is that this is an example of what a concretion spanning over millions of years may look like. We estimate that it could have started 60 million years ago, and as such, the core of these may hold many intriguing discoveries for us. Number 14. The Atacama Desert Whistle. Eerie whistling sound. Not all mysteries that we will show you today have to be or have a physical form. Instead, we take you to the Atacama Desert, dubbed the driest place on Earth. Apparently, besides being dry, it is also shrouded in mystery, considering that creepy-sounding whistles and sounds can be heard coming from it occasionally, and we can't seem to get to the bottom of where this is coming from or what's causing it. What we do know by now is that we can best hear these noises when everything seems still, usually at night or early in the morning. Number 15. The Tunguska Event, 1908. The next mystery we bring you is quite a peculiar one, and it became known in 1908 after a huge explosion happened near the Tunguska River in Siberia. The explosion had a devastating effect on the surroundings as it took down everything that stood 2,000 square kilometers surrounding the explosion center. When something so big happens naturally, it can have an effect on the whole world, so people were even able to record changes in England. Now, we aren't weirded out by what an explosion can do, but when such an explosion happens, we would expect some evidence at its epicenter. We have found nothing of this. Hence, there is all the mystery about this event. Even though there were people who said they saw a ball flying through the sky, we still found no evidence of impact and weren't able to discern what caused the explosion. Number 16. The Mary Celeste. The following case could be described as a ghost story. It includes events that happened in 1872, a year when a lot of ships happened to go missing. Among these, there was one who was the most mysterious. The name of it is Mary Celeste, and it was found with its cargo intact, all the food and supplies available, and no damage to the deck or the sails. Still, there was no man to be found. The recordings we have prove that there were over 10 people on board, but none of them were ever found. Number 17. The Dragon's Breath Cave, pushing out warm air. If you're like us, caves in general can feel quite claustrophobic and mysterious. This one, however, is quite special. What makes it so is that it holds one of the largest underground lakes in the world. Many explorers enjoy the wonder of taking a dive deeply under the Earth's surface, but the reason that it's found itself on this list comes from another weird characteristic of this cave. Namely, it pushes out warm air that resembles the breath of a dragon. Imagine the confusion and the fright one could feel if they were to sense the breath of the dragon on their skin. Even though no dragons were found, many unusual creatures inhabit the large cave. Number 18. The Marfa Lights, West Texas. The next case we bring you concerns an unexplainable event that occasionally occurs in West Texas. This mystery has been around for over 100 years, and it involves glowing orbs that periodically appear near the Texas town of Marfa, hence the name of these lights. Same as with any other type of light, it is usually most clearly seen during the night, and considering that we have no clue as to what's causing them, this certainly can cause a lot of worry. Even though we don't know the background of it, it has happened so much that people already recognize some of the characteristics of this unexplainable light. It seems like a glowing orb and often flickers, but not just that. It's also known to change color and jump around the sky at an unbelievable speed that our physics shouldn't allow to happen. Some of the ideas that have grown around the flickering light include aliens, but there are also those who trust it could be a mirage created by natural elements. Number 19, the Coral Castle. From mysterious and unexplainable lights, we move on to an amazing coral structure that is known as the Coral Castle. This interestingly shaped castle is located in Florida, and its mystery is hidden in the amazing architecture that this castle exhibits. The man whose hands have put together this next mystery that we bring you is called Edward Leedskalnin. While we aren't surprised that it's built from corals, what's interesting is that it took over 1,000 tons of them to build this structure. The creator has carved everything from this unexpected material. The statues, the furniture, even the walls. The mystery of this castle isn't who built it or using what material, but how it was built. Construction started after the 1920s, and it took the man about 30 years to complete it. Edward seems to have been working on it alone and mostly during the night, so we can't understand how he was able to move these huge pieces of corals that were sometimes as heavy as 30 tons. We never got the chance to find out how he did it, but he did leave us a hint, saying that he discovered how pyramids were made and that the same techniques were put to good use in creating the Coral Castle. Number 20, the Tao's hum, a persistent droning sound. We have already previously seen that mysteries can sometimes come in the form of sound for which we can't find an apparent reason. This is exactly what has been happening in a New Mexican town, Taos. The noise that we're talking about is a low-frequency one, and it has been present since the 1990s. As we can imagine, this couldn't have been great for the mental well-being of those who can constantly hear it, from which one can't take their attention. The reason why this is a mystery comes from our inability to actually record and catch the sound, even though many inhabitants of this place are telling us that they can hear it. The ghost ship, the ancient spheres, the alleged proof of alien life, now we have seen it all. Thank you for sticking around and following us through this list of 20 unexplained mysteries that we still can't seem to decipher.